Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards are sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference alongside the Detroit Pistons with a 5-13 record. Now, credit with the Wizards, they did win last game against the Miami Heat, 31 points for Bradley Beal, and no Russell Westbrook that game. Washington Wizards have had a terrible start to this season, but in a good note, Bradley Beal is most likely going to be an all-star starter. As we've seen today with the current ballots going out with the fan votes, Bradley Beal is pretty much leading in the Eastern Conference in the backcourt set. But due to that, they have one of the worst records in the NBA and one of the bottom teams in the Eastern Conference. And it seems like they're losing 20 by every night despite their best player, Bradley Beal, that's been averaging 35 points per game this season. This is kind of like a James Harden effect last season, or especially in 2019. But when it comes to Bradley Beal, we can see he doesn't really generate wins as a number one option, and he's now on the trade rumor scale when it comes to the NBA. Now, it has been reported that Bradley Beal and the Wizards don't want to move along from each other. The Wizards want to keep Bradley Beal, that's apparent, and Bradley Beal pretty much states that he's good being in Washington. I've always stated on my side, Bradley Beal cannot be a number one option for your team to make the playoffs, let alone win a championship. That is far-fetched. Even though he's giving you 35 a night and he's one of the best scorers out there in the league, for anything, he has to be a second option on a team if they want to be a contender. More preferably a third option to win a championship, but a second option to be a contender. I know a lot of people don't like that. I can care less. Bradley Beal is a star player in the league as of right now. He is leading with 35 points as a scoring leader in the league, and he's going to be an all-star. But as a number one option, ever since John Wall was hurt or wasn't there anymore, Bradley Beal has not been able to take the Washington Wizards into the playoffs. It is what it is when it comes to that. Now, we're going to look at a couple teams to where if Bradley Beal actually were to get shipped off this season or next season, what are the best destinations for him? And as of right now, I don't expect the Wizards to trade Bradley Beal. That is far-fetched. They've even said it. Maybe they'll let go of Russell Westbrook. Preferably next offseason. If not then, probably during the trade deadline if they're really, on the bottom of the East. But let's see if the Wizards can catch a groove. All right, here are trade destinations. Not all of these are teams that, I would prefer, but these are some of the teams that have been thrown out there when you're talking about fans and what they could see them. So ever since from last season and this season, the Denver Nuggets are one of the teams that people have thrown out for Bradley Beal. Of course, who are the Nuggets going to give away? We all know about the main core young stud is going to be Michael Porter Jr. and a couple of picks preferably. Now, there's two different there's two different perspectives on this. So if you're the Nuggets right now, you are sitting in the Western Conference with the 4th seed. You are sitting at a 12-8 record. They had a bad start to this season, but they've been picking things up. You've lost Jeremy Grant, you've lost Plumlee, you lost Torrey Craig, Troy Daniels if you're the Denver Nuggets. They're trying to find some more depth on their team. Now, when it comes to Michael Porter Jr., he is an ideal six-man for them as of right now, but if you can bring in a player that can give you 30 a night, you may want to prefer bringing in Bradley Beal. Now, this is a peculiar situation because I like the timeline for the Nuggets to grow with their core three of Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and same thing with Michael Porter Jr. But maybe if you're the Nuggets, you made the Western Conference Finals and you really want to push on the stage of getting to the finals, let alone win a championship, then you're going to have to make that move for Bradley Beal. On my end, I would not do it if I'm the Nuggets. I would grow those young 23 to 25-year-olds together. Now, if you're the Washington Wizards, Michael Porter Jr. would be a great fit alongside with Deni Avdija. Those are two young studs up in the making in the league, and they would play very well alongside with each other. That's a great building block if you're the Wizards. And if you can pick up a couple more, first-round picks, second-round picks from the Denver Nuggets. So the Denver Nuggets are one of the teams out there that kind of makes sense for both parties if you're the Wizards doing it. One of the second teams has been thrown around is the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this is if they were willing pretty much to move Ben Simmons on the trading block, and this would be the right spot. I doubt the trade will go down if they keep Simmons and Embiid and they bring in Beal. Tobias Harris, a bunch of their young guards and draft picks are not going to get it done if you're the Washington Wizards. It makes zero sense for it, but after looking at the James Harden mega trade with the Brooklyn Nets and Rockets, nothing surprises me anymore in this day and age in the NBA. Preferably, that would be a terrible trade, but If the Washington Wizards, I would in a heartbeat trade away Bradley Beal to get Ben Simmons. Simmons and Danny Avdija would be great on their young timeline. You're in the Eastern Conference, you'll be fine as it is building around those two. If you're the Philadelphia 76ers, Ben Simmons may not make an All-Star appearance, and pretty much a lot of fans have been stating that Ben Simmons has not progressed or got any better in his potential ever since his rookie season. People will say that Ben Simmons' best season was his rookie season. Even though Ben Simmons has made around 2 to 3 3-pointers in his whole NBA career, still not getting it done with. He's very predictable on the half-court set and his low demeanor. So if you have Joel Embiid, who is an MVP as of right now, leading top in the Eastern Conference, bringing in Bradley Beal as your second option, that's something that the Philadelphia 76ers with Daryl Morey, who likes to bring in star players, that's something you would have to consider. I think it would make sense for both sides. Now, if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I would like to keep Simmons with Embiid, but knowing their management and ownership, they may make that trade if it were presented to them. And I wouldn't get mad at the 76ers doing so due to their success in bringing in Bradley Beal on that team. It would not shock me whatsoever. One of the other teams we could looking around, I'm going to say no to the Boston Celtics on that aspect. No way you're trading away Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. And Jaylen Brown, he may start in the All-Star game over Jason Tatum. We already know Jason Tatum is not going to start, but Jaylen Brown, being a shooting guard on their team, he's not going to get the fan vote, but with coaches and, with the media, Jaylen Brown deserves to be an all-star starter. So you're not going to trade Jaylen Brown away for Bradley Beal. Boston Celtics, no reason. Another team, the New Orleans Pelicans, who are sitting one of the bottom teams in the Western Conference. Brought in Stan Van Gundy, never liked it at all whatsoever. And with their young group, if you can have Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, or Bradley Beal, watch out. Now, if you're the Wizards, who would you ask for in return? Most likely, if you're the Wizards, you would want, of course, Zion Williamson, but that's not going to happen. But preferably Brandon Ingram. If you're the Pelicans, you're not going to give away BI or Zion for Bradley Beal. So if you're the Wizards right now, if you want Lonzo Ball, if you want Josh Hart, if you want around 3 first-round picks, maybe the Wizards do it like that. Nothing shocks me in this NBA as of today. But if you're the Pelicans, that would be an ideal trade with Bradley Beal, BI, and Zion Williamson. Now, the timelines don't really match as well because Bradley Beal is around 27, 28, and who knows when it comes to it, but I think that's an interesting trade, to say the least. Don't know if that would go down with, but nothing shocks me in the NBA. All right, next, let's see here. So I would say no to the Golden State Warriors. They're going to expect to bring back Klay Thompson next season. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt a third season because that's tragic as it is. Okay, another team that it's a sleeper team that can come in stealthy to pick them up. The Atlanta Hawks. Now, if you're the Atlanta Hawks, you're around the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. You're most likely going to squeak in to make the playoffs because the East is so horrendous as it is. The Miami Heat and the Raptors have done very poorly this season. Who knows if they'll make the playoffs? But if you're the Atlanta Hawks, if you compare Trae Young with Bradley Beal, that backcourt would be set offensively. Now, defensively, more suspect, but they got length on their team. Now, who would you give away to the Wizards? Of course, you have John Collins, that's up in the picture. DeAndre Hunter will have to be included as well. Of course, around 2 to 3 first-round draft picks. Who knows if the Wizards are more concerned on draft picks and bringing it like that, but that could be in consideration. The Atlanta Hawks do have some other moving parts to include as well in that picture. So the Atlanta Hawks, I think they're a team that should be up in the running, trying to get Bradley Beal. And like I said before, with the struggling Miami Heat, they're the next team that's going to be on the list for consideration. They have a 13th seed in the Eastern Conference, 7-14 record, who just lost to Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards last night. If you're the Miami Heat as of right now, you've had a long season. You haven't had much time to rest ever since the finals. And you lost Jay Crowder on your team. He's no longer there as of anymore. You did have one of their centers. I keep forgetting his name. He looks like Justin Bieber, but he's out, shoulder injury. He's out for the season pretty much. And with the Miami Heat as of right now, never caught a rhythm. They can't finish it out in the clutch as of right now. But pretty much this would be ideal if you're the Wizards. If you were able to bring in Tyler Herro, maybe Nunn and or Duncan Robinson with a draft pick, something along those range. If you're the Wizards, you make that happen easy. Danny Avdija with Tyler Herro and possibly Duncan Robinson or Nunn and maybe a draft pick or two. The Wizards will pull that trade. If you're the Miami Heat, bringing in Bradley Beal would, if you're going to stick with Jimmy Butler, that would fit the, if you're sticking with Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal would fit the timeline for that 3 to 4 years with Jimmy Butler. Now, do I expect the Miami Heat to do this? Probably not, but they're in desperation mode. Who knows what happens, especially during the trade deadline or at the end of the season, if they'll keep their team as it is. The next team on the list, the Milwaukee Bucks. You could look to center a trade to let go of either Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton, but knowing the Wizards, they're not going to budge on any of those two players. Even though the Bucks are in high demand to have and receive Bradley Beal, I just don't expect enough moving parts with picks or players over to the Washington Wizards. So we're going to skip over the Milwaukee Bucks as it is. Now, other people have kind of thrown out the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not too crazy on that. Now, the Mavericks do have some nice young pieces. I mean, you got Jalen Brunson out there. You got Tyler Terry out there. You got Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber. You know, those are more players that fit in this day and age in the NBA. You could throw a couple first-round picks. Or maybe if you just scratch that in general and include Kristaps Porzingis with another player pick, you could pair Bradley Beal in a backcourt set with Luka Doncic and rebuild your team as it is. Because the Mavericks right now are one of the bottom teams in the West. And push comes to shove, they may do that. But do I expect Donnie Nelson, Rick Carlisle, and Mark Cuban? Probably not. Probably not. And one of the last teams are going to be both the LA Lakers and the LA Clippers. They could really use a contender if it's for now or next season for Bradley Beal. As the big three that's now in Brooklyn with James Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant just formed, it's looking like if you're the Clippers, you could really use Bradley Beal on your team to be a ball handler, a scorer, and especially that can come in pretty consistently in the playoffs. Do the Clippers have enough moving parts? No, they do not. Are they going to give away Kawhi Leonard or Paul George? No, they won't. So right now the Clippers don't have enough assets when it comes to it. I know those were somewhat trade rumors, but that's not happening. For the LA Lakers, now you do have some pieces, but they're not going to, the Wizards wouldn't budge off that. They would rather take the Miami Heat deal. They would also rather take the best teams that make sense for the Wizards to make a trade are the Miami Heat for their young stars, the 76ers with Ben Simmons, and basically that's all the ones that make sense overall. Yeah, the Miami Heat and 76ers. So we already know the news and reports. Bradley Beal is not going to get traded this season by both parties, but those are a couple of trade destinations that make, well, those two make the most sense, but the others were in the rumors. So Bradley Beal, let's see if they can make the playoffs, if him and Russ can work together, and if they can build a team around them.